Learning is a journey, not a checklist. Miss Mary Perlin, a computer science student, challenges the traditional notion of education, urging us to embrace curiosity over conformity. In her talk, Schooled but Not Studied, she demonstrates how learning can become an adventure of discovery, where creativity and inquiry take precedence over role of memorization. Please welcome Miss Mary Perlin.
I think in every class, there's a couple students who you just see and you know they're gifted. They're going to accomplish something great in life. They're going to make us all proud. Yeah, that wasn't me. That was the kid sitting next to me. Because for most of my school life, I was average. And I mean aggressively average. I wasn't really failing any of my classes, but I wasn't really a beacon of hope either. I kind of was just there, a silent source of disappointment, never really improving. And I hit a new high when I entered high school, because now I couldn't even reach my average. I went below average, the category where now you have a permanent spot in your teacher's prayers. And to be honest, it was an honor. I kept all my teachers very religious. But to put it simply, no one expected anything out of me. Forget that. I don't think I expected anything out of me. That was until I entered university. And suddenly, in the end of my first year, I was a straight A student. I made it onto my dean's list. I went on to become one of the Deputy Principal's Award holder for my academic excellence. I took part in hackathons, projects, and people were coming to me asking for help with their courseworks or projects. I became the in-house tutor. Me, I was considered smart now. Don't worry, even I question if the bar dropped that low. But surprisingly, it hadn't. I actually was academically succeeding. So what changed? For me personally, I think it was my perspective and also the freedom that came with university. Because finally had a freedom to choose what I wanted to study. And like they say, with great power comes great responsibility. Now I felt the need to actually put more effort. But the thing is, even in school, I worked really hard. But it was kind of like running on a treadmill. I was sweaty, I was tired, but kind of stagnant. I didn't really go anywhere. But what changed was my perspective. I realized just like in school, in university as well, I had some courses that I enjoyed learning. I found interesting and it was effortless. I just seemed to even know more than my professor sometimes. I was the one who would ask questions about my new discoveries. But then there were always the other courses, the boring ones. I couldn't even sit through the lectures. So now it was clear. The secret sauce was curiosity. But too bad my curiosity was kind of wonky. It only worked for some subjects, it was non-existent for others. So how do I fix this? It's this little thing called the information gap theory. It's a psychological term, I'm sure some psychology students might know. It's a simple theory that states the gap between what you know and what you don't know is where curiosity thrives. If you know too much, the subject's going to be boring. You already know everything. If you know too little, this gap is going to be too big and it's too scary to even approach. And for me, a lot of times, those were the subjects that I didn't like. The subjects that I didn't even know that much about and was just theory on theory on theory. Now, how do I actually change this? It's called transformation with knowledge. To put it simply, when you look at the subject you don't necessarily like, with a subject through the lens of a subject that you do like. Now, forget about all this theory. This was me this summer. I wanted to do a passion project, now with my newfound confidence in my academics. I wanted to figure out this thing called quantum computing. I wasn't really expecting much, just the basics. And quickly, when I did a little deep dive, I realized quantum computing had very deep roots in this little thing called physics. And if you know me and physics go way back, as in I was bullied throughout my life with physics. And as soon as I found out it was physics, I don't know, the little curiosity that I had flushed down the drain. How I was not going to choose to learn physics in my spare time. But this time it was a little different. It wasn't just physics. It was physics relating to quantum computing, which I found interesting. And suddenly, when I viewed the same old physics through the lens of computer science, which I already had an established curiosity with, it became easy. I would have never thought a year ago that I would learn the starting basics of wave theory and particle propagation that I learned in 12th, again in the span of 2 months, and I knew it better than I did when I did my board exams. And that's the beauty of curiosity. It thrives and breeds in the ways that you want it to. But one thing's important. The same curiosity that makes you this responsible and able to be an academic genius is the same curiosity that makes you scroll for hours. The algorithms knows how to exploit you. Now, I was on top of the world. I had achieved the one thing that I strived so hard for throughout my school years. I should have been the happiest version of myself, right? But suddenly, right when the exam approached, I faced the same fears. The anxiety, the heart beating out of my chest. And I don't mean the butterflies in my stomach kind of nervous. I mean almost a panic attack kind of nervous. I had my problems with anxiety since high school, but I thought it was just because I wasn't good at school. But now that I was doing good, why was the fear still there? It made me so confused and so hurt. Because for so long, I was sold a lie that being an academic excellent genius would fix all of this, but it didn't. And then I had to do something that was hard. The same curiosity that they gave so freely to the world, the same whys I asked about the world, I had to ask about myself. I had to be curious about what was me. I had to ask, why did I react this way to a simple test that I objectively knew I was going to do amazing at? Why was I so scared? And when you start to ask those whys and hows about yourself, you learn to not just figure out your pattern of behaviors and realize that your flaws are not part of your character. They always have a reason. I realized that for me, for the longest time, being the mediocre and average student had made me internalize that fact as a part of me. To put it simply, I believed that no matter how hard I worked, no matter how much effort I put in, I would still be average or I would still fail. And every time I succeeded, it was just a stroke of luck. See, logically, this is simply incorrect. But emotions just don't have that. I believed this fact like it was truth. And my anxiety fed off of it. Before every exam, the questions of what ifs plagued my mind. But soon enough, I had to break apart this thought. And first of all, it started with forgiving myself. As students, a lot of us forget that how much hatred we harbor to ourselves for not doing enough, for not studying enough, for not being more prepared. You have to forgive yourself because it was just kid you who was dealing with the same pressure and stress, but in the best ways they knew how to, which a lot of times was avoidance or acceptance like I did, believing it was a part of my character. But soon enough, when I learned to forgive myself, I had self-realization. I had to consistently keep telling myself that because I learned this chapter, I'm going to do well in this exam. Because of all the past times that even when I failed, I got back up, I'm going to do well. You have to keep reminding yourself till you build that self-realization up. Now, when you leave this room today, I just wanted to say, you don't have to have it all figured out. All you have to do is start the loop of curiosity. Ask a why about yourself today. Ask a how about the world tomorrow. And bit by bit, you're going to live a life based on curiosity and learning. And curiosity doesn't just unlock consumption of information, but unlocks becoming into your true self. Thank you.